Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. So if you guys caught my video probably last week, maybe a week and a half ago, just depends on when this one goes live, I started doing a series here where I'm catching up on my 2022 films that I wanted to see, but didn't get around to them last year for whatever reason. So this is part 2 of my 2022 catch-up. Last time I talked about, I believe it was 4 different films. Today, I actually have 6 to talk about, so lots to get through. Just like last time, though, I'm going to keep these spoiler-free and as short and concise as I possibly can while still making it worthwhile, I guess. So let's do it. If you have a second, though, before we do, hit that like button down below. That engagement really does help me out. But with that said, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right into part 2 of my 2022 catch-up. First up is one that, if I'm not mistaken, I believe there's actually a release from Vinegar Syndrome that happened last year, but I watched it via HBO Max. This is called We're All Going to the World's Fair, and this one is directed by Jane Schoenburn. This was one that I was really excited to see because it looked like my style of movie. It was found footage mixed with just really cool imagery and weirdness, and so it sounded like something I would probably enjoy. Unfortunately, I didn't. So we're following this girl. I don't know exactly how old she is. She's probably in, a college-aged, I would say. And she decides that she's going to start this online role-playing game. It's an immersive role-playing game, horror-based. And I guess like weird things happen to people who start playing this game. And so she starts playing the game, and it's a question of, is what's happening in her head or really happening to her? But then there's this whole other element where this guy is like watching her videos that she posts on YouTube or wherever she posts them. And he starts contacting her saying, like, with warnings, basically, trying to make sure she's okay. But there's a whole weird aspect with that guy too. I don't know. This was just a really strange movie that honestly, I don't have a whole lot to say about. I thought this one had some really cool imagery in it, just some really cool shots that looked awesome. Like if you look at the poster, that's one of the really cool shots in this film, for example. Like, there's just some really cool moments in this. And the acting's great as well. But when you combine those two with no story that's worth watching or, no, like, message that's worth sitting through, at least that I was able to catch, it just doesn't make it a fun movie to watch. And so this was one I didn't enjoy at all. Now, I will say, like, a lot of people really like this movie. A lot of my, like, other horror fans that I follow on Letterboxd, for example, they're really high on this film, but it just didn't work for me. Not as bad as Skinamarink that I talked about in part 1, but not much better either. I didn't like this one. So I ended up giving We're All Going to the World's Fair 1.5 out of 5 stars. The second film today is probably the most disappointing one I'm going to talk about, even though it's not necessarily the lowest rated film in this group. This is Jurassic World Dominion, directed by Colin Trevorrow. So let me start by saying, just to set the stage here, I was a massive fan of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. And I know that's not a popular thing to say. Most people really didn't like that movie, but I loved it. I had such a blast with it. It was so, I don't know, just unique and interesting, tied in enough with that Jurassic Park feeling, but did so much more with it, almost like an espionage film at points. Like, it was just awesome. And then the ending of that, what sets up what could have been like a Jurassic Park apocalyptic film. Oh my God, I was so excited for this movie. And then Jurassic World Dominion opens up, and we're like, I think 4 years later now, and it's not at all what I wanted it to be. About 20 minutes in, I was already just extremely disappointed with what was going on, not connected with any of it at all. And then finally, at about the 40-ish minute mark or so, 45 minutes in, when they start introducing the old cast and they kind of come together, then I started enjoying myself a little bit more. But really, this just felt like a generic action film that happened to have some dinosaurs tossed in because it, used that Jurassic World name. But my goodness, this was such a massive disappointment. Now, from a technical standpoint, yeah, the movie looked amazing. The movie sounded awesome on my sound system. It looked great. The acting was fantastic. I loved having that old cast in there. The new cast, they're fine. I thought they did a great job. I love the young girl. I think she does a great job in this. I liked her in the last one as well. But outside of that, it feels hollow. Like, it's not at all what was promised, or at least what I had in my head as being promised at the end of Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom. That's not at all what we got with Dominion. And I'm still disappointed that they didn't go harder on like an apocalyptic style with Dominion, because I thought, like, I just feel like there's so much there they could go with. But unfortunately, we just get a generic action film with dinosaurs. So not terrible. And once those older characters are introduced, my nostalgia kind of set in, and I did enjoy it a little bit more. But man, this was just so disappointing. So unfortunately, even though most people didn't like Fallen Kingdom and I loved it, I can't be that dissenting voice for Dominion. I go with most people on this. This was not a great movie. Not terrible though. So I'm still giving Jurassic World Dominion 3 out of 5 stars. I should have mentioned, I did watch this on 4K. It was sitting next to me and I forgot to grab it. So just envision that whole last segment with me holding this box. Next up is one that I ended up watching on Amazon Prime Video. This is Beast, directed by Baltasar Kormakur. And I apologize because I probably butchered that. But basically with this one, we're watching an animal survival film. This one stars Idris Elba, and he takes his 2 daughters down to South Africa to this game reserve to visit what they call their uncle, but he's just a family friend. Once they're there, they end up going out to look at some of the lions and just some of the wildlife in South Africa on this game reserve. Well, there's this like rogue lion that's just going around and butchering anything and everything in its sight, and they get caught in his crosshairs. And so it felt very much like a Jaws on land style of film. Now, that can work for you, and it works pretty well enough for me. Like, it's exactly what you would expect it to be. Not much more, not much less. They do add in some family drama elements to this to just kind of like give it a little bit more depth, but it's ultimately meaningless, and I just didn't really care that much, if I'm being honest with you. And so that it was what it was. It really had no bearing on the film as a whole, so it just wasn't needed. But I understand what they're trying to do. Give these characters more depth so that you care a little bit more about them when this lion starts attacking them. Now, one thing I'll mention is that the lion itself I thought was done pretty well. I wish they would have gone, it felt like they were going to make it like this bigger than the average lion, a bigger, badder beast. But they didn't really go for it 100%, and so it just felt a little bit bigger, but kind of the same as the other lions they were showing. I thought the CGI was done pretty well, though, for the most part, but I don't know, it wasn't as menacing as I hoped it would be for a film like this. So, I don't know, there's not a whole lot to say about this one either. I mean, it's a fine movie. If you like animal survival films, you'll probably enjoy this. Idris Elba, of course, is an excellent actor. His 2 girls are played really well also. So, I mean, there's a lot to like here. It's just, it kind of is what it is. It's not special. It's not super memorable. It's just a survival film. So I ended up giving Beast, what did I give it? 3.5 out of 5 stars. Next up is one that I picked up on Blu-ray recently. This is Bodies, 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 directed by Helena Rain. So this one we are following a group of 20-somethings. They're all like post-college, I would guess. And they are basically having a storm party. This hurricane is coming, and so they all bunker down at Pete Davidson's character's house. I can't tell you how many times I've called him Pete Townsend, but anyway, they all go to his house, which is this giant mansion because they're all filthy rich, and they have flashlights, they have food, tons of drugs, and lots of liquor, and they're just going to party the storm out. So everything's great until somebody shows up dead. And that's what we're following here, is who did it, who's the bad guy. It's like there's slasher elements mixed in with Clue, mixed in with like Gen Z sensibilities, mixed in with a ton of satire that is so over the top, and it is hilarious. I thoroughly enjoyed this one. I thought the acting in this was excellent. We have our one of our characters, Alice, played by Rachel Sennett, and she is hilarious in this. She is like the ditzy or just spacey character here, but she is so funny. I love her. She's a podcaster, super serious about it, and just hilarious. And then our main character is Amanda Stenberg. She's awesome as well. I think she does a fantastic job in this. And then Pete Davidson's character is just super like the big jerk of the group, but hilarious. And so I thought that was just really well done across the board. And then you have the whodunit aspect of this film, trying to figure out which of these characters is the bad guy, is what you're trying to figure out throughout the entire duration of the movie. And how it plays out, I thought was just awesome. I really enjoyed it. It is hilarious, and I'm not going to say much more because that's like a major element of this film that you don't want ruined. And so this is one, like, know very little about it going into it, but just understand that this is a satire. They go over the top with all of like the Twitter catchphrases and just like those things you think of with like younger millennials and Gen Z. Like, That's what this is, turned up to 11. And it is so funny. It's just done really well. And so I thoroughly enjoyed this. It did take a little bit for the humor to for me to really catch the humor, I guess. It's a little more subtle maybe at the beginning, and then they kind of crank it up a bit as the movie goes on. But once I realized what was going on here, I just had a blast with this, and I highly recommend this one. I will absolutely be watching this one again. This was a lot of fun. I gave Bodies, Bodies, Bodies 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is another one from Amazon Prime Video. This is Smile, directed by Parker Finn. So here's another one that I was just super excited to see, and now that I have, I'm a bit underwhelmed. So this is a movie that had so much potential to be like one of the genuinely most creepy films I've seen in a long time, and it just doesn't deliver on that at all. So we are following our main character. She is a doctor, she's a therapist, and she witnesses this patient who she met like 10 minutes prior, comes into her office after being brought there by an ambulance. She ends up committing suicide. But before that, she tells her about this story of this presence, this evil presence being near her that is like showing people smiling, and it's creeping her out and just ruining her life. And then she ends up killing herself in front of the doctor. And then that same thing starts happening to the doctor. And so she has to figure out what's going on. How do I escape this evil presence? Nobody will believe her, of course. So how is she going to get people on board to help her? And so on. So this really felt to me like one of those forgettable mid-2000s J-horror movies that came out of the craze of The Ring. That's what this felt like. Something like I think Sarah Michelle Gellar was in a movie called Possession, which if you got Horror Pack over the past decade, you probably have the Possession in your collection. But it reminds me of something like that like I know I've seen it, but I just don't remember much about it. It was fine, but it's very forgettable. And that's exactly what this movie is, which is so disappointing because there's some really creepy moments to this. But even the jump scares, I don't think worked all that well. They just don't deliver on the potential that this movie had. And that's such a disappointment. I thought the acting was okay for the most part. There were some moments that I didn't like that much. I don't really like the character interactions all that much. Our main character's fiance wasn't that strong in this. And again, I think it was probably more the writing than the acting. But he just didn't look very good in this. And I think, again, because of that writing, it was written in such a weird kind of fake way that the relationship never worked between those two. And instead, we see the relationship between her and her ex be a lot stronger. And so that was just kind of odd. It felt loveless, and it's like they're engaged. They're supposed to be like in peak honeymoon phase at this point, right? And so I thought that was a little bit disappointing. But there's not much else to say about this one. It's just, there's a lot that they could have done with this, and they just don't. There's a big message here about mental health and kind of her dealing with her past, and we learned something about her past, and I just didn't care. Like, I don't know, I just didn't care at that point. Like, this isn't a bad movie at all. It's fine. I had a fine time while I was watching it. It's a little bit above average, but man, this could have been at least a 4-star film if they just would have went a little bit further with some of the creepiness, some of the disturbing aspects of this. They could have played up a bit, but instead they don't, and it just feels like a PG-13 horror movie from the mid-2000s. So that was just disappointing to me, and it very much feels like The Ring, which is probably why I go back to that era of films. Now, again, I'm a little bit more nostalgic for that because that was an era where I was watching a ton of horror movies, but it doesn't make it any better, really. So I ended up giving Smile, directed by Parker Finn, 3 out of 5 stars. So I actually watched this last movie before I watched Smile, but I have to talk about this one last just so I can end this one on a high note. This is Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by Daniel Kwan and Daniel Scheinert. And I will not bury the lead. Yes, this is as good as everybody says it is. This is a mix of a family drama, a kung fu action film, and a sci-fi time travel film, and it's done in just the most perfect way imaginable. Movies like this, like I think back, I don't think I've had a 5-star film that I've watched, before this, since something like Parasite. And watching movies like that just reinvigorate you as a film lover, and it just makes you want to watch more and see what other movies you may have missed that might be as good as this. And so like this is just, it was a wonder to watch. Jamie Lee Curtis is in this as well. Absolutely amazing in this. Completely, like, different than anything I've seen her do before, but she was phenomenal. But the real stars of this are our family here, and they are a Chinese family. The mom and the dad are immigrants. They came over from China to start this business, basically live the American dream. And that's what they're attempting to do, but things aren't exactly perfect. And, you know, so it's such a, like, the family drama in this works so well. The message being delivered here is that basically love wins. And I love that. Like, it is just delivered in the most impactful and powerful way that I could have hoped for. This is just a smartly made film. It is beautiful to look at. It is so unique and original. I don't remember anything that I've seen that was quite like this one. It is something to behold. You have to see this movie. I hope it wins the Oscar, which I don't really care about Oscars at all, but I hope it does, just for their sake, because a lot, you know, the directors, they care about stuff like that, I'm sure. And so they deserve it. This was amazing. I loved it. I could gush about this for another 30 minutes, but I'm going to stop there. Just see it if you haven't. Everything, Everywhere, All at Once is, without a doubt, a 5-star film. And if this doesn't end up as being my favorite film that I've watched this year at the end of the year, I will be blown away. All right, so there are 6 more films that I watched that came out last year, and it was a mixed bag. But man, when you add Everything, Everywhere, All at Once to the mix, it seems like a win. Like, what an amazing film. But I want to hear from you guys. Have you seen these 6 movies? And if so, what did you think of them? Did you watch We're All Going to the World's Fair, and did you like it better than I did? Am I wrong about this one? Is this not quite as good as everyone thinks it is, and myself in particular? Let me know what you guys think about these and any other movies from 2022 down in the comments below, and give me some other recommendations. I got some on my last video, so thank you for those. Hopefully I can add those to the rotation, but yeah, we'll see. My parental leave is coming to an end after this week, so my movie watching will unfortunately take a dive, because it always does once work starts back up. But I'm going to take advantage of this week as much as I can and watch as many more as I can to try to get through my whole list. But anyway, let me know down in the comments below what you guys think about these and anything else. I always appreciate all that support, so thanks so much for that. But as always, if you guys did enjoy this one, please hit that like button down below. That engagement really does help me out. And if not, hit thumbs down. That lets me know to change something as well. And like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media. Books, movies, video games, graphic novels, manga, records. If it's media related, I'm interested in it. And if you are too, you might consider subscribing. All right, so that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for watching. And I want to encourage you to consume some media today. And if you have it at your disposal, make it this one, because it's amazing. I will catch you guys next time.